region to destabilize the country.
کنفرانس مطبوعاتی دفتر نمایندگی شورای ملی مقاومت، سیاست در قبال ایران، دخالتهای رژیم آخوندی در منطقه و تهدیدهای اتمی. قسمت آخر.
معرفی کتاب تهدید پهپادی سپاه پاسداران، ترفند یک رژیم درمانده برای قدرت نمایی و جنگ افروزی.
جاناتان روحه، مدیر سیاست خارجی بنیاد جیسنا. اجرای واقعی تحریم‌ها برای جلوگیری از برنامه پهپاد رژیم ایران علامت مهمی به رژیم ایران ارسال می‌کند که ایالات متحده در مورد بررسی گزینه‌های دیگر جدی است.
It's an honor to be back here with NCRI US. I and my organization support the goals of NCRI US, and we've been focused on sort of addressing the comprehensive range of challenges posed by Iran, both to the Middle East, the global order more generally, and also inside Iran itself. I'm going to pick up on an issue that has been addressed at the broader strategic level, but I'm going to jump down a little bit to more operational considerations, which is Iran's growing use of drones or UAVs. I would join my panelists in recommending the new book that's been released today. As someone who's been studying this issue for years, there's a wealth of new information on the structure, roles, organization, capabilities of Iran's growing drone program. And I'm really specifically going to pick up on one issue that the book lays out in great detail, which is Iran's use of drones to project power around the Middle East gives it an ability to compensate for many of the internal inherent weaknesses of the regime that have already been laid out very well by the preceding panelists. And so what my organization does, and what I'll use as sort of a stepping off point from release today, is what we call the Iranian projectile threat. And drones are central to this. Often drones that of the type that Iran uses for attacks, which are often sort of one-way kamikaze drones, as the book lays out, is Iran's concerted improvements to its drone and missile capabilities just in the past 5 or 6 years, especially since it enjoyed all the sanctions relief from the JCPOA nuclear agreement. Iran has plowed millions of dollars. The figures range, but certainly it's made a concerted effort to improve the range, the payload, the maneuverability, and the accuracy of its drones and cruise missiles. The second factor, and as the new book points out, is Iran's ability to proliferate these capabilities around the region, Yemen, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, while also using Iran itself as a base for launching these attacks. In 2018, when the Trump administration left the JCPOA, Iran used drones for about 19% of its attacks around the region. Today, that number has tripled to about 60%. Additionally, 3 years ago, Iran used an average of just over 1 drone per attack, and that also has tripled. I hope my comments have amplified what the book lays out in great detail, and I would just say, in terms of steps going forward, things the United States and our partners can do is genuine sanctions enforcement on a lot of Iran's ability to obtain dual-use materials, to advance its drone program, and also penalize countries that help Iran further these capabilities. And then finally, I think it would send an important signal to Iran, a signal that the United States is serious about considering other options. So thank you very much.
علیرضا جعفرزاده شرکت‌های پوششی سپاه پاسداران را که در برنامه پهپاد به کار گرفته می‌شوند برای اولین بار افشا می‌کنیم. روش برخورد رژیم ایجاب می‌کند که همه قطعنامه‌های شورای امنیت علیه این رژیم مجدداً اعمال شوند.
After a long wait, since June, finally a new round of talks have started in Vienna since last month, which so far has not produced any results, nor should anyone expect it would go anywhere anyways. So while so much attention is consumed with Vienna, there are many other very important aspects related to Iran that needs to be addressed. The most important being inside Iran, what the people of Iran are going through, what they're asking for, and what's the whole internal situation in the country. We now have Ebrahim Raisi, a mass murderer at the helm, who was involved in the massacre of 30,000 political prisoners in 1988, 90% of them being associated with the MEK. His selection as the president of the regime was meant to frighten the Iranian population, but in the past 3.5 months, we have seen that that hasn't happened to the country. We have seen a lot of protests going on in Isfahan and 3-day protests by the teachers in over 100 cities across the country and many more. We also have other very important aspects of the rogue behavior of the Iranian regime. It's terrorism, its support and export of extremism and Islamic fundamentalism, its missile program, its drone activities, what they're doing in the region to destabilize the country, and many more. Back in October, actually October 6th, right here, we had a press conference, and we revealed various aspects of the UAV program run by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards and the Quds Force. We disclosed 8 industries who were involved in manufacturing the UAVs and 7 UAV utilization centers all over the country. If you look at the map of Iran, these are the places that we discussed back in October 6th. In that circle, you see Daswara base, which is both the headquarters of the aerospace force of the Revolutionary Guards. This is the satellite imagery of that. And then here is the organizational structure about the IRGC aerospace force. You can see that now IRGC has 5, IRGC aerospace force has 5 forces. One of them is actually UAV command. And we talked about the commander and all the other activities that they're doing, including we talked about Saeed Aghajani, the role he plays, where he's stationed. He's actually at the headquarters of both aerospace force, but also the headquarters of UAV command is actually there at Daswara garrison. And then what happened was 3 weeks later, October 29, 2021 this year, the Treasury Department designated a number of individuals and entities in connection with the UAV program of the regime. As you can see, OFAC saying, designating Saeed Aghajani under Executive Order 13224, that's like terrorism. And then later on in November 30th, Congress got involved and very quickly passed in the House Foreign Affairs Committee a very bipartisan resolution, H.R. 6089, Stop Iranian Drones Act, introduced by Mix and McCall, the chair and the ranking member, and it was almost unanimously passed in the House and is now before the full floor. So the reason I mentioned that is that the significance of the information that we revealed before, but also highlight why it's so important to focus on what we're revealing today, which is that we're revealing for the first time the IRGC front companies that are actually used for the UAV program. These are the network of companies with civilian titles. They're very, benign-looking companies that, but in fact, they are at the service of the Revolutionary Guards for the purposes of procuring parts, material, and accessories for their UAV program. One of them is actually what they call Iranian Aviation Space Industries Association, which in reality is a core of groups and individuals with close ties with the Iranian Revolutionary Guards who use these front companies, civil-looking companies, to do what the IRGC itself cannot do. And we have elaborated on that and how they're actually helping the IRGC to circumvent sanctions and purchase accessories. And it's really a smuggling ring for the regime. But when you go on their websites, you look at them, you don't see any of those signs, but in fact, that's what they're doing. I'll give you just two examples of them. One of them, for instance, is Hamid Saidi. He's the director of one of those 15 companies that we're revealing today. It's called Farnas Pasargad. You can see him, the shorter guy, showing the UAV navigation system to the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. You can see how close he is. And then what he's actually doing, he has done joint projects with the IRGC, building spy drones. He chaired the board of directors of this UAV working group, which is part of the that association I mentioned. He's very close to Saeed al-Ajani, the person I just mentioned earlier, who was just designated as terrorist by the Treasury Department. He's also associated with the Quds Air Industries, which is the main body within the regime that is involved in producing the UAVs. The next person, Masoud Qasemi, he wears different hats. The picture on the right, you see that the airplane in the background. On the left is the Chamber of Commerce of Alborz province. He actually uses some of those elements to help the regime. He's a board of directors, a member of the Iranian Aviation Space Industries Association. He previously chaired that. He's a nephew of a IRGC Brigadier General Saeed Qasemi, one of the hardcore Revolutionary Guard commanders who makes headlines in news in the Iranian media like every other week. He uses Alborz Province Chamber of Commerce to circumvent sanctions. So here is a list of 15 companies, and I don't want to go over all the details here. All the information is actually listed in this report that we're revealing today. But you can see that, the first two of them, I talked about them. And then we have the Iranian Research Organization for Science and Technology. And then you have Iranian Innovation and Acceleration Center. Actually, Hamid Saidi, the first person I showed you today, he's one of the main managers of this center as well. And then you have Farnas Pasargad, which is the one that Hamid Saidi is running. And then you have Balgostar Negah Asamanha Technology, which actually produces UAV parts in cooperation with the Airspace Force of the IRGC. Then you have Kharazmi Electronics Industries. You have the Iran Bek part Khabarmianeh. And then you have the Safa Production Distribution Cooperative Company, which is one of the subsets of the Iranian Aviation Space Industries Association. And then you have Arastec Aircraft Maintenance Service Company. And Maham Pergas Technology, interestingly, that entity is headed by an RGC Brigadier General, who's also a pilot, Mohammad Nourouzi. And then we have Hezareh Sevam, Industrial Allied Development Company, and who works closely with the Ministry of Defense and the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran. And then you have Nazari Titanium Company, which is run by two brothers, Nazari brothers. They work very closely with the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Oil, the Atomic Energy Organization, providing them with the things that they can't get it elsewhere. And then you have SARA-safe tools and no-andishan composite structures, industrial productions. Since Raisi took office, the Quds Force of the Revolutionary Guards has intensified its activities, including its UAV attacks. And they're spending billions of dollars on UAV and missile, and while, 80% of the Iranian population live below the poverty line. So that's why we need to deal with firmness with this regime. No sanctions relief should be allowed. Congress should impose sanctions in addition to the legislation we have. We want to make sure that all of these front companies are also included. And at the end, the way that the Iran regime has handled all of the issues, certainly it's imperative for all of the UN Security Council resolutions to actually come back and be reimposed on that.
Thank you.
They're doing in the region to destabilize the country.